15 wrestlers that Impact Wrestling needs to sign is the video for you today here on SCW. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Now, I did this for AEW about 6 months ago, and I can't take full credit for this. I have to say thank you in the comment section to Pact Entertainment, who said to me, can you do this for Impact Wrestling as well? So, well, it's Slammiversary season, so without further ado, it seems like a good time, better than any, to be doing a video like this. So, I'm going to go through some of perhaps the WWE releases that we've got now, some that I think could fit in well in Impact Wrestling, and as well as we go towards the end of the video, some more ambitious ones, maybe ones that are less likely to happen, maybe ones that I think that I just would like to see in Impact one day. So quickly before we start, of course, as usual, I keep the single wrestlers as usual, the tag teams count as one pick as well, and just before we get into the video properly, of course, I don't expect Impact to sign all 15 wrestlers at the same time. I do realize that would be overkill. That was thrown in the last time I did this for AEW. So they're just 15 suggestions of wrestlers that I think the Impact could use over time, whether they're bringing them in gradually, whether there's a handful at Slammiversary. I just think whoever is picked in this lineup could make an impact, pun intended. So without further ado, let's get straight into it then with the first selection, and I'm talking about the best kept secret, or as he would say now, secrets no more. Buddy Murphy, of course. Now, he for me is a fantastic in-ring athlete that never really got the opportunity that he perhaps deserved in WWE. He carried 205 Live when he got his chance to break out on that show, being a long-term Cruiserweight champion. When he did come to Raws and SmackDowns, he had great in-ring matches with the likes of Roman Reigns, Aleister Black, who, by the way, is now gone to AEW as of last night, so congratulations to him. I do think that Buddy Murphy, though, has this opportunity now becoming a real breakup star. Now he's no longer with WWE. Yes, he was the disciple with Seth Rollins, but as soon as that storyline dropped and the Mysterio stuff dropped, he didn't really get any TV time. Like I say, he's been released in June of this year, and I think he would be fantastic wherever he goes. He's a great in-ring talent, and I think he could be great for the X Division. I actually think, though, he has been pumping himself up in the gym. He looks like, to me, he could go to World Championship status. If he can still go with the extra muscle on him like he could before, we've got a heck of a talent in our hands here, and I think Murphy is such an underrated talent as well. That's why I wanted to put him at number one in this spot, to show that I think that he could literally be a game changer wherever he goes. And I think for Impact Wrestling, this could be the best signing of the lot if they were to make sure that they could get his signature. Next on the list is another underrated talent, in my opinion, Killian Dane. He was in WWE, better known on the indie circuit as a Big Damo. This guy was phenomenal on the indie scene. In fact, with the What Culture Wrestling stuff, he did some great work before being signed by WWE. He was involved in Sanity, but of course, originally as well, he actually got a spot in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania at a very early stage, came in the final three. It felt like there was so much potential with what they were going to do with Big Damo in WWE, but unfortunately, it never really quite materialized. Sanity never really become anything. He did have some great moments in NXT, particularly when I look back at the North American Championship ladder match. He had a great star-making performance in that environment, but nothing really more came to shine, really. And of course, his last days in NXT were more of a tag team with Drake Maverick, which, let me be fair, was a great comedy act that they had together, that sort of oddball dynamic. But I feel that Damo is much more than that, and I think with this guy, he could be treated like a monster. Now he's going to be released amongst other companies, and I think Impact Wrestling would be the perfect time for him. Would it be someone that would be perfect for Violent by Design? Because, I mean, he's had the previous experience of working alongside Eric Young. I mentioned Sanity already, so this for me could be a natural fit. And even if he was to break out on his own, I really think that at this point in about 6 to 12 months, I think Big Damo is going to be a big name that we're going to be talking about wherever he signs. And I think for Impact Wrestling, this would be a very clever move if they could bring him in to their roster. Let's speak about Violent by Design. Let's speak about Sanity. Let's talk about Alexander Wolf, another one, of course, released by WWE, and of course was a part of Imperium recently, but has the previous experience also of being in Sanity with Eric Young, and he's just got the look for Violent by Design, hasn't he? And I do realise here, I'm growing the members of Violent by Design probably too much at this point. It's almost going to become like an NWO from the 90s if I keep going on, so I won't keep throwing in more names into that stable at this point, but I just think he feels like a natural fit. He's a great in-ring worker as well, and I think that we can have some great matches with Wolf in the Impact roster. And I think when you look at the likes of Brian Myers, who've managed to come to Impact Wrestling over the last 12 months, reinvent themselves, the most professional wrestler, become a stable part of that roster, there are other people that you can think are underutilized in other places, who you may not think at this point oh, that's a big name to throw in there, but you bring them into Impact, and I think that they, like I said, they have the opportunity to reinvent themselves and get their stock back in their name. And I think Alexander Wolf will be a perfect example of that. I really enjoyed his work, whether it was a part of Sanity or whether it was part of Imperium. I really enjoyed his work, particularly in NXT UK. So Alexander Wolf, for me, will be a great fit, in my opinion, for Impact Wrestling. Let's switch things up and let's go for the Knockouts division, shall we? And I think I've done this song and dance already, so I won't keep it too long. The Iconics need to be brought in. It's kind of obvious, isn't it? The tag team, Knockouts tag team division, the rivalry of Fire and Flavor, I think could be great fun. They're great characters. They'd fit in so well with that sort of Knockouts roster, which is full of different dynamic characters all over. I think that they would just slot in very, very nicely. They could play the heels to perfection. And I even think if they wanted, they could do sort of stable with Tennille Dashwood. I think that could be quite fun also. So yeah, I mean, it just ticks a lot of the boxes. I mean, they could go perhaps to AEW, these two, but for me, I just feel like they would be treated so much better in Impact Wrestling. It feels like just, you know, it's like the hand fits the glove. I think it would be a natural fit for these two to come into Impact Wrestling. So I really hope that this one happens. So the Iconics to Impact. Chelsea Green, of course, is another one. And of course, she's got great ties with Impact Wrestling. Previously, of course, working for them, of course, as Laura Van Ness. She was a former Knockouts champion. One of her best friends, Deonna Purrazzo, is on the roster also, who's just, of course, broke up with her group with Susan and Kimberly. Perhaps Chelsea Green could be the best friend that comes in. Got that sort of tag team dynamic going forward there. Maybe later on they kind of break off on their own and it's, you know, Laura Van Ness going for the Knockouts Championship against Deonna Purrazzo. Could be something that could be fun to see. And let's not forget as well, her partner Matt Cardona also on the Impact roster. So not only would she sort of fit into the locker room instantly, it'd be great to, you know, have that sort of team player, someone that gets on with everybody, but also previous experience with Impact. So this one for me feels like a shoe-in. I feel like this is almost a must. It needs to happen. Chelsea Green to Impact Wrestling. And let's talk Mickie James, shall we? Now, I know she's got the NWA All-Women's pay-per-view, but NWA don't have a few women on their roster. They don't have more, so I imagine perhaps some phone calls may happen. Maybe that forbidden door may open up, and do you know what? Impact does a lot of their tapers in Nashville, and that's where Mickie is from, so I personally think that this would be great for her to come in. I also am thinking about the dream match that could be Mickie James against Deonna Purrazzo. I think that would be awesome for the Knockouts Championship, so for me, again, it's another one of those I really hope happens. And yeah, I mean, Mickie James, she's a legend. She's been in Impact before, a multi-time Knockouts champion, and you know, to hear Hardcore Country, you know, you can't be against that. So yeah, Mickie James to Impact, I think is another one that needs to happen. But we've done ones that have been there previously. Someone that has been there previously, but not as a former Knockouts champion. She did a few appearances, was in the Knockouts Tag Team Tournament. I'm talking Killer Kelly, a fantastic in-ring performer. You know, it would be great to see her there. She's done some work, of course, previously in WWE with the Mae Young Classic, NXT UK. I think she was underutilized while she was there. I thought I saw a lot more potential than what was given. I think if she was to come into Impact, I think she would arguably be one of the best in-ring knockouts that they've got. So I could see her getting pushed quite well. So I would like to see Killer Kelly be added to the Knockouts roster and be a part of Impact Wrestling. I think of all the ones that they've let come in and perhaps have gone back out the door again, I think Killer Kelly is the one that they must bring back through the door and keep her in Impact Wrestling. Let's move our attention towards the X Division, shall we, next. Now, X Division is one of my favourite divisions in the entire wrestling right now. Impact are doing such a solid job with their roster they've got there right now. To add to it, they only need to add the premier athletes, in my personal opinion. Speaking of the premier athlete, why not Tony Nese, a former WWE Cruiserweight champion, has performed on WrestleMania. Of course, he's good friends with Matt Cardona, I believe, as well. So I think another one would fit very well within the roster. Would be some great matches you could have there as well, particularly like the likes of Josh Alexander, Chris Bay, Ace Austin. You know, I could go on really. I'd really like to see it. I think he'd be good. I think he'd be a natural fit once again. I can also see him in other places like NWA and be a top guy over there. Nese arguably could actually go outside of the X Division and go for the World Championship in Impact as well. But I really would like to see him go and be a part of the X Division. And for me, it's one of those ones that I kind of hope happens more than I expect it to happen. But let's go for more of that Lucha Libre style, because I don't really can't think off the top of my head any sort of like real masked kind of luchadors that we have right now, apart from Black Taurus in Impact. But I mean, he's kind of part of Decay at the minute, so why not Aerostar from AAA? I think that'd be awesome. I know he's competed before in amongst the Impact realms. We've had Impact versus Lucha Underground, maybe when Impact has done their tours in Mexico in previous years, but Aerostar's a phenomenal athlete. Anyone that's seen him perform knows there's not a risk that he won't take, and I think that he would just be awesome to watch. I just basically want him on my TV screen, if I'm brutally honest. Aerostar, one of my favourites from going back to watching Lucha Underground Underground. Whenever I do, I always make sure to stick around and watch some more of his matches. And yeah, I'd love to see him part of the Impact roster. As I say, this is more of a guilty pleasure for me more than a must-see. But certainly one that perhaps maybe better at the speaking English and sort of another one of those WWE releases could be Kalisto, and I'd like to see him part of Impact roster. Again, for the same reasons as the X Division, fantastic in-ring performer, just like the two previously. Would be amazing to see. Almost could be like that Rey Mysterio of the company. Do you know what I mean? We don't really sort of have that in Impact Wrestling right now. So I personally think Kalisto would be a great fit. And like we said there, he's fantastic at playing both roles, because he was kind of with Lucha House Party playing the heel towards his end of his WWE run, but he's also done the babyface run as well. And if you remember some of the great spots that he's done in matches, I think he brings a wow factor also. So for me, Kalisto would be one that I'd like to see. Let's look at tag team wrestling for us next now, because I think there's room for at least one more tag team on the Impact roster right now. And of course, I like gimmicks with Impact. Impact seems to have a lot of great characters, and I think that's what makes their roster stand out from time to time. And I think Breezango would just be awesome to see. I mean, of course, you've kind of got that Tyler Breeze kind of like selfie stick kind of vibe going on. Of course, Fandango being, well, whatever Fandango does, they usually do all the fancy dress malarkey. I think it'd fit in quite well with Impact, but also these two have got a chance to reinvent themselves as well, could serious up their gimmicks, their characters, and go with a completely different direction now they're no longer with WWE. It's definitely something I would really personally like to see, and I do think they will have a lot more success outside of WWE. I was a particularly big fan of the Fashion Files back in the day. I really enjoyed when they did that back on SmackDown. I think some sort of variation of that could be a lot of fun to watch on Impact TV, because they like doing their sort of backstage segments where we've got Swingers Palace, where we've got Tenille with her questions that you can ask her and stuff. So we've always had those sort of talk show segments, those backstage kind of segments, wrestle houses as well. I think Breezango would really fit in well with this Impact roster, and it gives a new lease of life of what they could do with these characters. But of course, different from the characters, let's have more of the beat-em-up ones. And of course, they're not retired, according to them on Twitter. I'm talking about the AOP. I'd love to see it. I just think it'd be pretty darn awesome if AOP were a part of Impact Wrestling. That sort of beat-em-up tag team that just goes in, no nonsense, and just beats people up and just smacks them around. And, you know, they're big guys. I'd imagine they'd be pushed very, very well. I would expect them to become tag team champions if they were in Impact. I think that they would elevate that tag team division as well. I think they did some great stuff. Very underrated one, I think. You look back on their NXT run also. So for me personally, I would like to see it. But of course, Rachel Ellering is in the company, so I would like to see Paul Ellering as their manager also. But that's for me going back to that guilty pleasure purpose, you know. But I was for the Ellering when he was with the AOP. That was when they were at their strongest, because they had a mouthpiece as well to go and actually give them the direction for their destruction. So for me personally, AOP would be pretty darn awesome. Last three names now, and I've got to say to you very quickly that these I don't expect to happen, but you know what? I'm going to go completely outside of the box for these, because I think that these ones would make a big difference in Impact if they were to come in. And the first one we're going to talk about is Shane Taylor. He's a big dude once again, but let me tell you, he's very agile and he's so good for a man of his size. One of the best big men around currently in wrestling, and I so much enjoy when I watching his work in Ring of Honor. I think with the Shane Taylor productions that he's got going on now, when he was actually, you know, beating people up at some points in his career as well, people wanted to, you know, give him a handout, he'd go and do the dirty work for them. He was a guy that definitely was a no-nonsense kind of person. I think that him in Impact in some form of stable would be pretty darn sweet, and I could see him towards that near top end of the main event. Can you imagine like a two-man power trap, him and Moose, for example? I think that that could work really, really well. And so for me, in my head, I know that it's very unlikely, but Shane Taylor in Impact, for me, the more I think about it, the more I really hope to see it happen one day. And if he ever does become available, I think Impact would be foolish to not go to try and get him in. Another one that would be foolish to not try and get in, and it's one of the best technical wrestlers in the world in my opinion, is Jonathan Gresham. Now, of course, so happy being a part of Ring of Honor. He's, you know, the Pure Rules champion, and he, you know, one of the reasons he wanted to be in Ring of Honor was the Pure Rules style. It would be amazing if that sort of style was actually brought to Impact, but then I suppose it would kind of be like their championship they had a few years ago when they had those sort of rounds and judges, and didn't quite work in Impact in my opinion. I think the Pure Rules works a lot better with what the style they do in Ring of Honor. But to take that aside though, I mean, Jonathan Gresham being a part in the X Division, a dream match I personally would really like to see one day would be him versus Josh Alexander. I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. And just with Gresham as well, of course, his real life wife, Jordan Grace, is in the company as well. So it's not beyond the complete realms of possibility that one day it could happen. I just think Jonathan Gresham is fantastic. He's one of the standout stars of Ring of Honor. If he was to ever to leave the company, why not have that stardom in Impact Wrestling? The last one I'm going to talk about, and of course, again, will probably never ever happen, but Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, I mean, he's not with WWE, he's not under contract there right now. Of course, he's expected to go back to WWE when he does, but if he was to spread his wings, have some dream matches with people in the circuit, perhaps in Japan or AEW, want to have some of those dream matches in Impact Wrestling. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, first off, you could just do Daniel Bryan versus Kenny Omega for the championship right now if you wanted to, but there's other stars like, you know, we said there already, like Moose, Sami Callihan, Eddie Edwards, and then you go in the X Division as well. We mentioned those names already: Chris Bay, Ace Austin, Josh Alexander. I mean, goodness, if you could even get Daniel Bryan for just a handful of tapings and just tape a load of matches and just get them in there, because Daniel Bryan, that's what he's there for, is to have some of the best matches in the world with some of the best wrestlers in the world, which he thinks is in Impact Wrestling. It would be just a smart move, and I tell you, people will be tuning into Impact Wrestling just for that. So for me personally, I wouldn't see this as a long-term signing. I would say that it's probably never going to happen. But hell, The Rock last year was a part of Impact Wrestling for Ken Shamrock's Hall of Fame induction speech, and no one ever thought we'd see The Rock's face in Impact. So why not dream big? If you don't dream big and you don't dare to dream, it will never happen. So Daniel Bryan is the last name that's going to be on this list, and if he ever steps foot in the Impact Zone to have any one of those matches that I've just mentioned that I would like to see, I can tell you I will be popping big style. But that's 15 names there for you overall of wrestlers that I think that Impact Wrestling need to sign, whether it's to help their ratings, whether it's to help certain divisions they've got, you know, or whether I just think that certain superstars can reinvent themselves and make an impact, pun intended. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with some of these names? Which names would you like to see? Who do you think Impact needs to sign? Because let's be fair, Slammiversary is just around the corner, and I've already done a video right now that's on the channel right this second. You can go and check out which released WWE superstars will be debuting for Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary. Go and check that video out now. I mean, to be fair, one other name that I haven't mentioned at all in this video, and do you know what, I will mention him just to finish off. You can have a bonus one. Braun Strowman, I mean, come on, the big dude, if he was to come in, he's a former WWE champion, he's a monster among men. The guy was so over the way he was booked in 2017. Wouldn't you love to see that in Impact Wrestling, if you could be booked that same way, the monster among men that we loved at that point before being, you know, tagged in, doing a tag team championship run with an 8-year-old and turning heel and face and doing all sorts of silly stuff that he's been booked to do over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years or so. I would love to see Braun in Impact. Again, it's another one of those I don't think would happen, but you know what? It would be amazing. Can you imagine him versus W. Morrissey? The big boy standing off would be fantastic. I'd love to see it. I think it would make a really, really big difference. But hey, I'm going to talk about one more because I can't believe I didn't actually mention the original 15 actually, so do forgive me. This is a blunder on my part here, but I'm willing to say when I've got it wrong here. Why I have not already mentioned Ruby Riott in this video is beyond me. A fantastic character. I love the rocker, the punk sort of gimmick she's got going on. I loved her ring ability. She was amazing with the Riott Squad in WWE. Enjoyed her work in NXT also. I always thought that she was championship material, whether it was actually as a singles wrestler or even a tag team wrestler. And I'd like to see her have the opportunity in Impact Wrestling. If Impact were to sort of pass this opportunity on signing Ruby Riott, or perhaps Ruby Soho, I believe she's going to be called going forward, I think they'd be very foolish. You can just imagine the matches she could have in Impact Wrestling. You know, she could go along the lines of for the Knockouts Championship with Deonna Purrazzo, any of the matches with the other people I've already mentioned in this video, and also, I mean, to think about the likes of, say, Rosemary, Havoc, those sort of styles of characters could be really fun to see. Su Yung, Susan, I just think, you know, Ruby Riott would be an absolute riot, and pun intended here, once again, I'd love to see it in Impact Wrestling, so Impact, please sign Ruby Riott. This is one I really want to see. That's my opinions. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. I'm looking forward to interacting with you. Please like the video, share the video, subscribe if you haven't already. If it's your first time checking out an SCW video, hit the bell on the notifications as well. Be up to date each and every time a video is released. Slammiversary predictions will be dropping on the channel next week, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. And have yourselves a great day. Most importantly, hope you're keeping well. And thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for checking me out here on YouTube. And yeah, I wish you all the very, very best. Take care. Have yourselves a good one. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. And why not check out one of these videos that's popping up your screen right now. All the best.